products, presenting, sales, and profit. And probably leadership plays a role as well. The new year now started successfully. I hope at least it started successfully for you. And you most likely have an approach how to sell the goods or services which you have in your organization. You want that these goods get out there, potential clients see them, and at the end, you want that they sign up with you. The question is, why is it so challenging for many organizations, especially in the year 2022, yet again, that they say we have high employee turnover, we have low motivation, and for some reason our closing ratio isn't where it should be? And by the way, which role does leadership play here? That's what we're going to talk about today. And I can tell you from my personal experience, and that experience is less than 2 weeks old, that many organizations seem to have lost the plot when it comes to presenting to clients. I'll just give you an example. I just recently was looking for an apartment which I need due to a project. I'm not going to tell you where. I'm going to put that on social media as soon as everything is saved, and probably when I'm in there. We'll see. However, I was looking for a very specific type of apartment. Many people call them expat or professional apartments, rather tiny places, normally quite central, very well connected, so you can get to main and train stations and the airport rather quickly, well connected, so you also can have a social life, and also you want them well equipped. Normally they're completely furnished, they're in good condition, and of course you need access to, let's say, fiber, internet, etc. By hearing fiber, the German listeners will know probably I was not looking for the flat in Germany. No, I was not. However, I was very surprised when I saw how the situation on the real estate market is right now. I contacted numerous agencies, different real estate brokers and agents. I gave a very specific description of what I was looking for, and quite a number of organizations disqualified themselves immediately due to their behavior. So first, when I write you an email to the official email address on your website, or I use the contact form, when you don't get back to me, of course, and probably you then answer 2 weeks later, no. When I send you an email during normal business hours, within 48 hours, preferably quicker, I get a response from you. So after I had to chuck quite a number of organizations out already, I gave people a very detailed brief of what I was looking for. And I was utterly astonished that sometimes people who own real estate, and I think your expectation is that I take care of your real estate very well, which of course I will do, you put your real estate out there as an empty, dark place where you think this is normally the place where probably a horror movie could start, and then you wonder why you are not the one to be picked. Because let's face it, at the moment with the pandemic still going on, less people are traveling, so the situation on the real estate market is more relaxed than it was for expat apartments, especially in central and more expensive locations. And also, of course, I am reasonably aware of the fact that I think I am quite a good tenant. I'm professional, I'm working there, save income, no parties, no guests, looking for a small place to work and sleep. So, and also when the pandemic now slowly comes to an end or gets more under control, that we're able to live with COVID-19, then of course it will pick up again, that I will travel more and more. And that means that pretty much I pay on time every single month, never have parties or guests there, so the flat will stay in a perfect condition. I think I'm a good tenant, and often that was reflected in the past. When I still see that you do not put any effort into your product, which is the apartment, you clearly show that you have no interest in showing off your project or product very well. And that clearly says that you will be a very difficult person to deal with for me, because I know when you pitch, you are now pitching your product to me, and I see you put zero effort into it. I know that as soon as there's anything to do with the apartment, maybe the heating is not working, or the water, there's something to be done with that, or maybe there's something on the wall which needs a bit of fixing, whatever it is, you will be the I can't reach out to you, send an email to the agency and wait 2 weeks for an answer kind of person. And I'm not interested working with people like you. It is the international standard. By the way, if we now have Germans listening here, you should listen to that closely, because Germany is a bit behind on the market with that. There is something called home staging, and home staging means that a professional person who talks to you then finds out who do you want to have on that flat, what is the perfect tenant, and they furnish and put the apartment into a condition to take pictures and for presentation, and of course also for visiting it, that A, you get a higher price either when you sell it or rent it out, and B, you are able to get people in there or sell it quicker. So quicker sales or quicker people in, and you get more money, either by a higher sales price or by a higher rent, which is of course paid monthly. So a good investment, which is why I can tell you, I will never consider any apartment or place to live when it is not staged. Because you clearly tell me that you have no interest in who I am, and that tells me you will have no interest in solving any issues as soon as they arise with the apartment and I live in there. Of course, when you say there is no appreciation and no positive attitude towards me, it's something which is called reciprocity. I give you the same vibe back, the same attitude you get back from me. Your negative attitude reflects on me, and I say, sorry, nothing's in for me. And by the way, of course, now, some people think, oh, real estate market, central, let's say London, I always get people who apply. And maybe you are right. Maybe you are right, although during the pandemic, remember, when the height of the pandemic came, how easy was it? But we get back to that later. The principle that people say, for example, I could be drunk on Trafalgar Square and say I have an empty flat, ladies and gentlemen, and I would still get tenants. Maybe you do. But first, congratulations to your professional attitude, if that is how you act on the market, questionable enough. And of course, you get people who have the same bad attitude as you have. So when you get someone in, they will say, sorry, there's a bit of a mark here on the ground. Sorry, could you please fix that? And they are actually, these windows are not according to the British standard new law. So that has to be exchanged and that has to be replaced. And there's a scratch mark on the door. So could I please have a new door? So when you act in that way, and now let's go from this metaphor to where you are in your organization. When you think, why do we struggle to get our projects and products sold? What about your sales team? Is it motivated? Oh, by the way, not what you think. Did you ever do an anonymous evaluation with a professional service who found out that maybe your people are not as motivated as you think they are? What about your sales team? What about your marketing team? What about the operational and technical level? Everyone involved to create the most amazing product. Anyone will have the highest expectations from you towards them. You will have the highest expectations that they do their job well. And in return, no one takes care of them. And then you're surprised that things go wrong on the client side. And of course, no one in your sales team will sell a single bit more than they have to fulfill their goals, because they know no one takes care, so all the problems end up on my desk. So why should I overfulfill, exceed my goals, when in return I just get a bit of money, which after tax isn't even that great depending on the country in which you work, but all the problems end on my table because our leaders either do not care or are not qualified. And now, of course, we have to look into how to do it better. So step number one, when it comes to how to do it better, never trust a hype. We all have seen hypes, and you think you have a nearly monopoly on the market, and suddenly some disruptor comes on the market and you have no idea how to act because you're a huge and very, very slow acting organization, while you have a very agile competitor who probably has a cheaper, better, or both offer on the market. So the first thing you have to do, never believe in a hype, never trust a hype, always look on the market, and you need a professional market research every single day. And of course, when people say, Niels, do you do it? Yes, I do it, and I get back to that in a minute. So you need people who professionally do market research. And by the way, the professional market research is not the unpaid marketing intern from University XYZ. It's appalling enough when you allow in your organization that people work unpaid. Work gets paid. That is common sense. That is meeting the minimal ethical and moral standards. When you allow people to work unpaid in your organization and you refer to other people do the same, Don't ever think that you have a moral or ethical stand in your industry or your organization. Work gets paid. You need professionals doing market research. When you then see something happening on the market, it is time that you have to rethink, did you actually proactively invest in, for example, sales, marketing, professional presentation training, everything that has to do with the client on the way from creating, producing the product, packaging it, marketing it, selling it, contacting, everything that has to do with anything towards the client. Is it professional? Did you proactively invest in professional qualification here? And was this professional training, coaching, whatever it was, delivered from someone who has the scientific background, but also the practical experience? Because when you only have one of the two, it's not helpful. When you only have the scientific evidence, but no experience, you speak from theory and you don't know how the world in reality works. When you have the experience but no scientific backing, you might run into someone who has a strong opinion that might have worked in the past but will not work right now because markets have changed. So you need practice orientation and the scientific background, and you need, of course, people who have the experience. Did you proactively invest? And if no, you have the bill on the table, which is way higher compared to if you had invested earlier. Because I still hear people who also email me and say it is very difficult to find people and employee turnover is still very high and the great resignation, this effect is still ongoing. Yes, it is. Because people don't see why they should work for you when someone else takes better care of them. And especially with remote work, every other organization that offers remote work on this planet is your competitor when it comes to jobs. So the situation became way worse and we need way better leaders. And now that is a very important aspect when it comes to leadership. Leadership changes constantly, not only from a scientific, but also from a practical point of view. I received a couple of emails where people ask me, how do I keep my knowledge up to date? If I just Google something, of course not. That is not enough. Some people who follow me on social media might have seen that I invested quite heavily last year into education. Of course, I don't put on social media, oh, look at me, I invest in my education, because I think these posts are self-portrayal and pretty pathetic. But what you have seen probably is that beginning of the year, I got the results, including the projects I handed in, the exams and tests I had to do. So I have 4, and by the way, you can see everything of that, including the proof on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is updated every week, often even daily. So it is very much up to date. I have 4 additional qualifications, and all of these 4 additional qualifications about leadership and remote leadership are from Harvard University. I achieved them by a platform called edX. edX is founded by Harvard and the MIT. Very scientific, very demanding, often quite stressful, but worth the effort. And immediately I learned aspects of leadership that I did not know before, because science evolves. And of course, I integrate that knowledge immediately into my courses. Ongoing education is a must-have investment and a must-have skill for your leaders as well. As soon as you have people on staff who say, oh, you can't teach me anything, I know everything. Well, when they deliver results, just let them be there and ignore whatever they do as long as they deliver results. But you also know who you should never promote and not listen to, because that attitude is giving up on yourself in the most embarrassing way. Also, you let everyone else in the organization down. You must be able to continually see how science evolves in your sector. And also, by the way, in any other sector, you expect the same. Just imagine you go to a GP, a doctor, a medical professional, and they said, oh, I went to university in 1994, all this training is so expensive. No, I just do it the old-fashioned way. So you get the treatment which I learned in 1994. I am your dentist. Do you want to go there? Because I don't. I do not. I expect the newest scientific standard plus practice orientation plus the experience. And that is important that you should do the same. And of course, people now, when I talk about market research, they ask me, do you do market research? And if so, how? Yes, we do. And I'll just give you an example about this podcast. Of course, I do market research here. And I have to say thank you to you for a couple of reasons. Reason number 1, we now crossed the line of 40,000 listeners, which is impressive. I never expected a fraction of that. My plan was way below that. Of course, it's not about the number or ego, but it is very, very impressive for me to see that you like the content. And we achieved only in the first 2 weeks of this year, quite an impressive amount of top rankings. We were in the top 30 in the Netherlands and Finland. We were in the top 75 in Germany, top 100 in the United Kingdom, and top 250 in Hong Kong. Amongst millions and millions of podcasts which are out there on the market. And I really have to say thank you, because we are listed in the category management, which is a very competitive category, probably the most competitive category on the podcast market. And just to be precise, if you want to know the specific ranks, Netherlands, we went rank 28, Finland, rank 29, Germany, rank 62, United Kingdom ranked 80, and in Hong Kong ranked number 203 in the management category on Apple Podcasts, which is also a highly and the most competitive platform. Thank you very much. And by the way, I would have never found out that we achieved this without market research. But also, and by the way, if you still say you want more than the podcast, please go to expert.nb-networks.com. On expert.nb-networks.com, just put your email address in there. Once per week, you get an email, 100% content, ad-free guarantee, with even more content of what I publish every week in the scientific world of leadership, sales, and how to lead your organizations properly. Of course, when you now say, hey, Niels, I have a really different point of view on this. So for example, you say, I disagree on the approach of how to handle presentation in front of clients, or I have a question about how to approach clients, or I have a question or a different idea on reciprocity. Perfect, because the discussions are what drives the podcast forward. And also part of market research, which are the topics that you are interested in. You can of course, send me an email, nb@nb-networks.com. Of course, when you say we need a trainer, speaker, coach, consultant, maybe someone for mentoring or project and interim management, let me know as well. We can talk about that as well. But for every and any discussion we can have, just drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com, and we take it from there, because you can influence which topics we are going to have on this podcast in the future. It is now important that from everything you learned in this episode, apply, because the change you want to see in your organization is only happening when you apply the knowledge you just learned in your organization. And please apply it proactively. So at the end of this podcast, there are only a couple of things for me to say. So first, thank you very much for more than 4,000 listeners. Thank you very much for amazing top rankings in the very first weeks of this year already. Very impressive. I am very thankful. And of course, now it's important that you apply the knowledge you learned. And at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing for me left to say. Thank you very much for your time.